Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Cindy, would you call the roll?
Certainly. Supervisor Schneiderman.
Here.
Councilwoman McNamara. Here. Councilman Martell.
Here.
Councilman Bouvier.
Here.
Councilman Skivon.
Present.
Okay, we're all here, so today's agenda, we're going to start out with the topic Long Island Greenways Phase 2 Design Grant Application, which will be explained to us shortly. We have Janice Shearer, our Town Planning and Development Administrator, Joe Lieberman, Senior Planner, and then we have some people joining us online, I believe. Carter Strickland, VP of the Trust for Public Land, and Danny Gold, Project Manager, the Trust for Public Land. Correct?
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning, Janice. Good morning. Always nice to see you.
Good to be here.
Mike.
Oh, sorry.
Good morning.
I'm just here for support. Mike's going to do all the talking.
Yeah, so this is an exciting opportunity. We do have Carter and Danny Gold, Carter Strickland and Danny Gold, the Trust for Public Land, are here with their own presentation, but we wanted to just quickly introduce while we're here. Obviously, biking is very important to our community. We have our Transportation Alternative Program grant that we're still working on in Hampton Bays. We've had various biking projects that we've moved forward with throughout the years. We have the one that we're considering in Noyak right now, as well as, of course, it's has a pedestrian component, but this is also an initiative of the state. The state has the Empire State Trail, which is connected Albany and Plattsburgh all the way down to Manhattan, but they forgot about Long Island, and that's why we're here. So Trust for Public Land, and they're going to go into more detail on this. Oh, nice to see you guys. They're going to go into more detail on this with regards to the Phase 1 of the Long Island Greenway Phase 1, and then Phase 2, which is really Suffolk County, really the North and South Fork. And they wanted to introduce themselves and introduce this idea and see if we have interest in it.
Also, I would just add, we participated with Suffolk County on the Hike and Bike Master Plan. So there's a lot of synergy between us, the county, and now the state, and the Trust for Public Land. So it's all interconnected, so to speak. So.
Right, and so, and the federal government, as you're aware, there's a lot of funds that have recently become available, and this RAISE grant is perhaps something that we want to entertain, and the county would act as the lead on this opportunity. So Carter, Danny, would you guys like to introduce yourselves and begin your presentation?
Thank you, yes, and hopefully we'll be able to share screens. My name is Carter Bergman. I am the New York State Director for the Trust for Public Land. And I'm Danny Gold, the Project Manager for the Long Island Greenway. Mike, there's a bit of a video delay. I think it's on, internet, so I'm going to take this off you, but if I can, it looks like I have the ability to share screen, so hopefully that will, take care of it as well. If there's a delay, just let us know, but what we thought we'd do is share our presentation. And we see here, sorry. Let me get to close a bunch of windows, I guess, and then I will get it. It's up and ready to go.
There's a great picture of not speaking.
Feedback.
It sounds like someone's following us around.
Either that or we're in a cavern. Hello?
Carter, it's unbelievable. Two mics on. It seems like there's
We don't have ours
devices on at the same time.
Are they?
I think both their computers have them on. Oh, they only need one.
Don't you love technology?
Yeah, we're getting double.
Double?
Yeah, we've never had this issue in the past.
There's an echo. We don't know why there's an echo.
I don't know either. I don't know what the SCTV is, but is that perhaps,
Well, if you have two mics on two computers, turn one on.
yeah, I don't.
Well, we can
It
do
only
that.
happens when we talk.
All right, so we won't talk, we'll let him present. We'll save our questions for the end.
Good idea.
All right.
Okay, I apologize. I don't know why, this is the case. You all can see the screen, right?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay. Well, yeah, I know we don't have a lot of time, and we certainly want to leave time for questions if we can figure that out.
It's better now.
I might have to call in. But, Danny and I, and other people on our team are working on a pretty exciting concept called Long Island Greenway. And that's what we want to talk about, and also basically the East End or Phase 2. Just a little bit about Trust for Public Land. You probably know us from, working on and protecting Halleck State Park and doing, many other things. You can see we've worked for the last 44 years all over the state, and we're a very practical environmental group that focuses on tangible results in the ground. We build parks, we build trails, we protect land. That's who we are. I think as Mike mentioned, this project started really when then Governor Cuomo, announced the Empire State Trail in 2017, and it's an amazing project. They built it over 3 years, added 350 miles of new trail to 400 miles of existing trail, but guess what? They left out Long Island. And you can see here that it goes from Buffalo to New York City, Plattsburgh to New York City, but it ends, and that's more than a third of the state. It's 8 million people. If you include, Brooklyn and Queens, in addition to Nassau and Suffolk. So we worked with the state, and really our insight and inspiration was in Suffolk County, the North Shore Rail Trail. We were in touch with the county. They had, after a dozen years or so, negotiated with LIPA to build the North Shore Rail Trail. This is a picture I took when I was on it just before it opened in October of 2021. It's beautiful. And, LIPA has networks all over the island, obviously, and more particularly in Suffolk County. So that's our starting point. And there's lots of precedent all over the country, but we came up with this concept plan after, going on the ground and taking a look. It's 175 miles from Manhattan to Montauk, so another 175 miles is adding to the 750-mile Empire State Trail, and it's 60% off-road, provides access to 46 train stations, 60 bus routes, links 26 parks, and really touches 27 communities within a 10-minute walk. So we kind of view this as this generation's answer to the Long Island Expressway. This is going to be provide another outlet and frankly relieve a lot of traffic. You can see here our concept. We had some possible main routes in solid and some possible alternative routes in dotted lines. Again, based on LIPA right-of-ways. And so that's what we want to sort of nail down, and I'll explain it in a bit. I think Mike has the big maps. But just to say, this is going to intersect with a lot of hamlets and also redevelopment areas. Obviously Riverhead being one. And, there's a lot in sort of the western end of Long Island as well. And we think that's critical because for, walkable, livable communities, this is not just an amenity, but kind of essential for getting people to and fro, especially for short trips. We have a lot of support, and it's not minor support, it's pretty substantial support. As you'll see, we've gotten so far to develop another segment we call Phase 1. We've gotten $1.1 million over 2 grants from the state through the REDC process, and we have $2.5 million from our U.S. senators who are big supporters, and we've certainly been in touch with Fred Thiel and other people, to Long Island Association, you name it, to support this project. So we've lined up a lot of support for it. And just to say, in our timeline, as I mentioned, we did a project in 2018, just a kind of an overall snapshot, but we've really been diving into what we call a phase one, which is 25 miles, spanning Nassau and Suffolk border. And I can return to this slide when you have questions, but it's a lot of information. But just to say that our phase one, we got a $600,000 state grant for conceptual design in 2020. We started that. We got a second grant for 100% design. We got the federal match. We're working for the conceptual design portion. We hired NV5, which is a well-known firm that's done a lot of work on Long Island, or Suffolk County in particular. They built and designed the North Shore Rail Trail. We are, in 2023, as you'll see, hoping to apply for the RAISE grant later this month, and later in July, we'll apply for an RDC grant, so that the phase two section can catch up with phase one. You know, we're hoping to break ground for phase one with construction in 2025. You know, we think phase two need not be long after that, you know, for construction. But just to say what we're doing here, in the phase one section, 25 miles, it starts in Eisenhower Park, goes through Bethpage, and ends in Brentwood State Park, and it is really touching a lot of schools, universities, parks, and communities. So we think that those kind of benefits, you know, will also accrue to phase two in the East End. That is increasing connectivity, creating strong, sustainable communities, really improving public health, and addressing safety concerns. Because unfortunately, Suffolk, together with Nassau, are at the top of cyclist and pedestrian deaths. And it's just knowing that they also, you know, there's not as much cycling and walking happening. So that's kind of the background for what we want to talk about. I know you have the big maps, so maybe, Michelangelo, maybe what we'll do is call in to avoid the echo.
No, it's okay now.
Chamber effect, but just to say that, you know, we think in looking at the Suffolk County Hike Bike Master Plan, there's been a lot of work that's been done already. We don't want to recreate that. We want to take it to the next level and get designs and get it construction ready. You can see in red here, you know, we want to go basically from Riverhead to Montauk Point. And, you know, Southampton's a critical part of that, but I think between these three towns, and this would be a county application to the federal government, we can put this together. And again, I know you have bigger maps, so I'll get off the presentation, but, you know, these are some possible routes through the village. We do know that, you know, the Hike Bike Master Plan laid out a number of possible options. That's the point of what we'll do in this design process is, you know, design the crossings, design the route, and, you know, make sure that it can meet community needs and we can get construction-ready documents. So I'm just going to close, and again, we'll figure out a better way to sort of connect in, but I'm going to close with a picture that NV5 took of the completed North Shore Rail Trail. This is 10 miles that you can go to between Port Jeff and Wading River. And it's beautiful. It's a nice amenity. It fits right on the right of way. Here, again, where there's not right of way, we can go, you know, using, you know, other portions of quiet roads. We'll figure it out. But that's what we're hoping to do. So with that, maybe, Mike, I'll rely on you as our person on the ground, but hopefully I'll stop share and see if.
I think the
If that makes sense.
communication problem is solved, guys.
Carter, can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
No, I think Charles muted us.
Oh.
Charles, can you unmute it?
Okay.
They should be able to hear.
Carter, can you hear us? Danny?
Can't really hear you, it's very quiet, it was loud before.
Okay, well, we don't have a feedback loop right now, so we can actually communicate with you.
Great.
So does the board have any questions on this at this time? I can go a little deeper, I guess, on more of the South Fork.
Yeah, could you go over the timeline of what we discussed, of what the town board, what we would need to do in
Next
the
steps.
short term,
Yeah,
at
sure.
least?
In the short
So-
term, the grant application is due in February 28th. So they would need a letter of commitment showing that we're interested in this, and then a resolution saying that we're committing funds to, for at least share the 20% match. And that's also, of course, if the state doesn't step in. So, we'd be Plan B on the funds.
And
So
what would-
that's it. right
And
now.
what are the deliverables? What would we get once this?
Sure. So we would get a design that's 90%. So we would, at this point, a lot of our plans are often written in a way where we then need a secondary plan to actually go into the construction phase. With a 90% design, we're not going to need that. We'd be able to then move into construction phase. Now, a raise grant, I think it's safer to say that knowing Riverhead's history, they've applied, I think, 4 or 5 times and they have not received it. Having a regional approach to applying to the raise grant is going to benefit us. I think that's actually a key phrase in their application process. So they also have construction grants. The long-term plan here is that we apply collectively with the county for a plan to figure out our biking infrastructure, to get LIPA, PSEG, and utilities to play ball, because it's a regional effort. And then phase 2 of our own plan is the construction of this, which would be perhaps through another raise grant, because they offer planning and construction grants.
How much are we being asked to commit?
$100,000 over 2 years. So
If the
And
state
that's-
doesn't come through.
if the state doesn't come through, and of course, if we're awarded the grant.
But are we committing to 20% of the construction costs later on?
Well, I think, well, the plan is its own grant. So the notion of applying to a construction grant is not on the table at this time.
This is like the feasibility and the layout and design and that.
And that tells us how much that's gonna cost?
You can't get to construction until you know those.
No, I'd just be concerned if we're committing to 20% of construction, which could be
No, we're not. This is a
You know,
separate grant. We'd have to
$30
apply
million,
a couple
whatever.
of years from now to the raised construction. But Carter, you can speak to that, but
Yeah, I was just gonna, you're spot on, Mike, and I would say it is separate, so you're not committed. I'll also say this for the state portion, we know that state parks has very much made a priority of connections to the Empire State Trail. So to just underscore Mike's emphasis of the regional approach, connecting eventually to both the phase 1 and to Long Island Greenway, which is our overall plan, to the Empire State Trail, gets us points, and I think that's why we've been successful in getting those design grants from the state. The other thing I'll point out is that the federal government is very eager to get out these sustainable transportation grants. And, having a county plan on board, we've got 1.5 million people who are gonna, be under the purview of the county benefit from this. I think that's very compelling. And so I think that, construction grants, look, we may not succeed the first time around, but I think the underlying logic, is very strong. And as we know, they are looking for construction-ready projects. In fact, if you look at the DOT construction grants, one of their big criteria is it ready to go? So this is a critical first step to get us ready. And I think that will stand us in good stead when we go for construction grants.
Carter, I have a question about,
Sorry, go ahead.
thank you, about, lots of questions. The design, when the design is made, are you going to take into consideration our comprehensive plans? We have various hamlet plans that have bike and transportation, pedestrian components to that. And would some member of the town, perhaps Michael or others, have input as this plan is being developed?
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's part of the feasibility is local town buy-in. I can tell you, Reggie, we're in meetings, and my colleague Danny is in NV5. We have scores of meetings with the towns, because one thing that has to happen is either we're going across the town or county road. Again, a lot of this is happening in Nassau County, but we meet with the town engineers, we make sure they're comfortable with it, with the crossings, which is kind of a big cost driver.
And hold community meetings.
Hold community meetings, thank you, Danny. So, yeah, I mean, there's a whole engagement process that's wrapped up in this grant to make sure that there is, not only buy-in by local officials, but also buy-in to this. And that's one reason I'm very bullish on this grant proposal is the towns have done a lot of work. They have their sustainability plans together. We check all the boxes there. And Suffolk County had a multi-year effort to pull together that hike and bike master plan. So we truly can say in a very convincing way, we're not starting from scratch here. We're building on a good effort, and getting good projects is really a key question for the federal government. And so all this, a lot of communities, unfortunately, across the country are starting from zero. And they have big ideas, but now we have a several-year head start. So it's one reason why I think getting in the first round, when you're basically ready to take it to the next level, is important, because when time goes on, other communities, as they should, will catch up and start their own planning processes with their own money to line themselves up with a federal raise grant. So I think now's the time to take advantage of this window and all the work that's been done already.
Okay, thank you.
So my question was, I'm sorry, my question was relative to the feasibility that obviously the map that you have here is kind of an estimate of location. I would assume there's a lot of easements that I assume you have to, I think Mike alluded to, you need to work with local utilities and so forth. Are you guys also working with the MTA in terms of the second track project that's being proposed out here, and whether there's an impact or actually an opportunity that can be taken advantage of in that sense?
It says the second track, right? You
I
mean the
think you're
sidings?
referring to sidings.
Yeah, the sidings for
Okay.
the spurs. Well, I mean, originally, they're talking about a whole second track, and it sort of devolved into spurs. We just don't know where that's going to go, but it's kind of critical to, in our view, at least in my view, it's critical to how our town functions. We have big traffic issues out here. Obviously, you're aware of that, and this is a big part of trying to relieve some of that. But working in conjunction with the state government, as well as I think there's a federal component to the track system as well. So it was just a question if you're part of that feasibility going to be involved in that, and if you looked at that as also financial opportunities to you.
Well, yes, first of all, we would, very much, we've been working with LIPA, extensively.
Involved in railroad and MTA also.
Yeah, Long Island Road on MTA, Danny's saying, is true. I will say that, our first, there's already very good precedent for taking advantage of the utility rights of way, and, that they already have access roads there. They're pretty much all used as informal trails anyways, to be honest. So that is an easier lift, we found. We've been working with them. We have access agreements. We walk the land, and a lot of what we're doing in the design process is to meet their requirements, to make sure there's separation, vertical separation from the wires and the like. So we're checking the boxes with their, engineers and doing overflights and things like that. I agree with you that there's a huge opportunity with Long Island Railroad. We've been, so far, the indications are where there's active track, they're not interested. And so that is where having, political leadership weigh in, with the new president there and with other folks to say, like, look, this is a viable opportunity if it is. It makes a lot of sense. We certainly can point to some projects around the country where there's rail with a trail separated by a safety fence. We have this in, Richmond, California, for example, which is right next to Oakland. There's lots of places. It's in New Jersey. New Jersey Railroad has it. So far, Long Island Railroad hasn't been interested, so in the project to date, we've been working with LIPA. And more specifically, we've been working with LIPA on the land that they either own or have an agreement with Long Island Railroad to operate on because it's an unused track. There is a section that we looked at in the Shinnecock Hills where LIPA only has an easement, and that's a little trickier, to be honest, but there's some other ways that have been identified in the Hike Bike Master Plan to get around it. So, rather than negotiate with 90 separate, underlying landowners who have given an easement for power line purposes, there might be some other ways around there, but that's what we look at with the design team.
Great, thank you.
We'd also like to see some synergy between the Long Island Railroad, the active routes, and trails, bike trails, people bringing their bikes onto the train, traveling long distances, and handling the last mile on their bike. I know people who want to do that.
Yeah, I would agree with you, and I also think, there is a big effort, and one of the consultants we have on board has done a multimodal plan with the MTA to make sure that they have more bike parking, because as we know, that last and first mile is really a big challenge for these stations, and especially, honestly, I don't want to take up too much time, but with the advent of e-bikes, your ability to commute to and from, or even enjoy recreational use, is much greater now. And so, we say that the first and last mile is actually the first and last, 3 to 5 miles with e-bikes. And that really can peel a lot of traffic off the roads.
Yeah.
So I think the potential is really right.
So question on that, would
Janice, you're next.
your system will provide amenities such as charging stations for e-bikes and other kinds of things? That's part of your feasibility? And I'll follow that up with another question, is that the MTA is about to propose a 5% rate hike for Long Island commuters, and this could be an opportunity to dig into that 5% on this basis. So that was my question and kind of statement to follow it up with.
Yeah, I think that I think that more amenities do make sense. We have looked at so far kind of the standalone bike amenities that you can get near kiosks where it doesn't require electrical power. You're raising a new point that we certainly can look at, especially where there's an area that's like an existing parking lot, for example. So far what we've done is, rather than add new parking, we've latched onto and directed through parks where there's already existing restrooms, already existing, parking areas and the like, and therefore existing electrical utilities, just to keep costs down. But it's certainly worth looking, and I think that's the kind of feedback from the community at large and local leaders that will be taken into account with, in the design process.
Janice?
Hi, good morning. My question is just about the administration of the grant, and that would be, so the county is sort of the applicant, and then we've been working with NB5 on our little trail in bike path in Good Ground Park, and they're wonderful, but it's a lot of paperwork. A lot of federal grants are a big bear, and just making note of who's doing it all, the county or you guys, or you're doing it for the county. So our $100,000 commitment to get to 90% design, does that include any administrative work on our end?
No, it doesn't.
That's great.
That's where
You'll have to come up with that.
I must ask that because it's a lot of work to do these grants.
But you
So
still have
Right.
to come up with $100,000.
It is. The county is willing to take the lift, and so, that's great. Some towns, of course, are eligible to apply on their own, but as I think, Riverhead is doing, and by the way, we tie into, Riverhead, the station there and multimodal process. So you had an earlier question about multimodal. So, in that case, because the town of Riverhead is the applicant, they're gonna have to administer it. In this case, the county, and we have a very close working relationship with Jonathan Keys and the whole economic development group there. They're willing to take it on. We, of course, are willing to do a lot of the work. I mean, Danny is administering a quite complicated state grant, for our process that happened to come directly from Trust for Public Land as the applicant for the RADC process. So, what we can do, quite frankly, is we're a partner with Suffolk County, is help them and really take the lead in oversight of NV5, making sure to hit milestones. We can also, and we will, I think this year, probably apply for an RADC grant, and that's a whole multi-month process. So, we just want to get the work done. We are also prepared to, for our own match, which we'd have to privately raise, but just a rest assured to you that we have some skin in the game. So we're prepared to do that. And, so we're a partner, but we realize it's the county's calling the shots, as is appropriate, and they're, very enthusiastic for the project.
So, first of all, let me say I applaud your efforts. It's really a monumental task that you guys have taken on. It's a great vision, and seeing it through is extremely complicated. And I lived through a smaller one years ago. I don't know if you guys are aware of the Rails to Trails program that was scheduled for Southampton to Montauk about 20 years ago. And it was a federally funded project, and a lot of work was done. An awful lot of design work was done. I mean, there were survey plans as large as this desk, and they're out there somewhere. Where that one ended up failing was where the parking areas were. That there were objections, particularly in the villages. They feared that too many people would come with their cars and then park and then take their bicycles onto the that paved surface. And it was largely along the railroad tracks, that one. But the money that was set aside for that ended up getting reprogrammed, and it was the money that was used for that North Shore Trail. So that's where that came from. It was originally for the East End. So I just sort of want to put that out there that as you start to figure out where the entry points are and where people park, that was the big controversy last time that killed it. And hopefully, it's 20 years later and people understand this issue. More people are biking than ever. And there'll be more community support and a better understanding of it. At least I hope. But it's such a monumental task that I'm glad it's you, not me. You guys seem like you really have a good grasp of how to get to yes and how to actually make this happen. And if it's happened from basically Syracuse to New York City, there's got to be a way of getting it from New York City out to Montauk. So. But I appreciate that. Not really a question.
Well, thank you for that, and that's a very important comment. It just emphasizes to us that the multimodal connections are quite critical. So thank you for that.
And we would certainly be as supportive as we could. There's obviously villages that are in your downtowns that we don't have jurisdiction in, like East Hampton Village and Southampton Village, where those mayors and village trustees have to be brought into the conversation.
We are scheduled, we're working with Mike's counterpart in East Hampton, and we are scheduled to meet with them next Tuesday. So, with their town.
Are you guys, and I don't think it would integrate, but are you familiar with the Pomona Path?
We are, yes, and we think, there's some intersection points. This is designed to be multi-use, so biking and walking. And by the way, even the North Shore Trail, if you're familiar with that, it's ADA compliant, meaning it's paved. And, it's perfect for biking, that's how I did it. But there's fun on that, and also on the Empire State Trail generally. Still about 2/3 of the users are pedestrians. It's parents with strollers, it's, people taking a walk with their dogs. So even if it's designed for that faster use, I'll say, I don't want to say higher use, but, it's quite compatible. A lot of the folks on it are gonna be walking or running or, doing their thing. So I say that because crossing that Elliott path, which is, more for hiking, obviously, we'll still see there's some usefulness to that, to the intersection, even if bikes can't go on it.
Right. Okay, good.
I think this is the spine we've been kind of waiting for, that we can then build other projects off of. And, we've been waiting for this kind of lead and opportunity. We even think about the Hampton Bays project. We've designed that to Empire State Trail design specs to hope to one day be included in this larger project. So that day seems to be perhaps approaching. Our next steps would be to get a letter of support and potentially put this on for the February 14th town board meeting, a resolution.
And the commitment is only the money if you get the grant. So if you don't
I
get it, then
understand
you
that,
don't
but we
have to.
can't commit without identifying the money and putting it aside. So
We can absolutely speak to the
I
comptroller
was gonna
about
say, have
that.
you spoken to the controller
Yes, I have.
on this?
I did.
And did
And-
Dorothy identify?
But, I mean, the message was, well, if the board is willing to go forward with this, then we certainly, would make an effort to identify the money and put it somewhere. That it was possible to do, but of course, it's the will of the board to do it.
Usually in
Where
those
is it coming
circumstances,
from?
we say in the resolution, in the financial impact, $100,000 matching will be, like appropriated if and when the grant, when you accept it. So you're not really accepting the grant, but you would be a follow-up resolution, say, well, yay, they got the grant, the county got the grant. You would have to do a follow-up resolution to then appropriate the money.
And
Right,
get a
but
GL code.
would
But
it
This is
likely
if the
be-
state doesn't come
Also,
forward.
the
Right,
with
state
the
so
funds.
there's all these
step in.
parameters, like, but you're just saying letter of support and, I don't know, if you even need to commit the money yet, or have a resolution.
But
No,
You
so
could all
but
just
but to
agree
the
to have a
supervisor's
letter.
point, we have to know where that $100,000 is coming from. We're just not magicking it out of the air.
We should encumber the money somewhere.
Yeah.
Right, and I imagine the money, if everything goes well, we might have to provide that money this fiscal year, right?
Well,
In
what-
2023, right?
Not necessarily, and I say that because, it's possible. But the way the federal grants work is on a reimbursement basis. So we're gonna hear, I think they said by June, thank you. By June, so we'll hear from the federal government, let's say the answer is yes, we get it. Then we, work with the county to get an RFP out, hire a firm, that's gonna be another 6 months or so. So, it's really gonna be, probably calendar year. Then we have to kick off with that firm, they have to have we'll probably have monthly billing, let's say. So you're looking at probably February of '24. And the county can provide a first match. So again, there's some flexibility there on the timing because it is on a reimbursement basis. Essentially what happens is your contractor gives you, let's say they do a bill for $100,000. You put that into the federal government and they, give you 80% of it.
So a question on that, maybe Mike, you can answer that. The source of funding on the federal side, what is that?
Raise the, RAIS.
So it's not coming from federal infrastructure money?
That's a transportation infrastructure pot of
That's
money.
part of it?
That's
So,
what raises.
because we can apply for that on our own too. I mean,
I would not.
Yeah,
But we were saying we had a better chance.
It's
Right.
better
I'm
if
just,
we-
we're just exploring all the
Right.
possibilities.
No, you
That's
could-
federal. It's,
Right, well, that-
sure that,
yeah.
it's gotta be a non-federal money. So it is federal infrastructure money at the end, the ultimate source. So you have to either have local or state.
So you could do a resolution authorizing the supervisor to write a letter of support for the grant. And then if you get the grant, you can wait on the resolution and then commit the funds at that point. Or you want in the letter of
No, I
support that the
couldn't.
money is committed.
Yeah.
Do you need it
No, I
in the
think
They
they
need
letter?
a
to
commitment,
encumber it,
so we need to
yeah.
do some kind of resolution
Okay.
encumbering the money. We could encumber it out of reserves or out of ARPA or something like that. Are we allowed to match our 20%? Can it be in whole or in part in terms of goods and services? Could it be staff time and things like that? Or does it have to be
Yeah, so they
dollars?
planned in some in-kind, so they actually, we have a whole spreadsheet that we share with Mike, and we kind of add the in time. So the overall budget, call it like $5 million, includes quite a bit of in-kind contribution, and that helps reduce the cash match.
That's good. Yeah, because I imagine the planning department will have some roles here to play working with you. And if their time, can be counted, that would help.
Yeah, I mean, we have, some tens of thousands of dollars in staff time match, just as an estimate. I will say, just on that point, on the ARPA point, even though the source of that money was federal, I think it's worth having the town attorney look at it, and I'm going to ask our attorney as well. I am pretty sure that the ARPA money can be repurposed for this, but it's worth confirming. I'm going to confirm with my colleagues around the country, but that it's possible that can be used as the match.
Okay, I'm not sure we even have any left, but if we do, that's a possible source.
Fair enough.
So also, would that resolution have to spell out that the town will enter into like an intermunicipal agreement with Suffolk County? Is there that level, we need an IMA in terms of this whole structure? Like,
I don't know, I think you have to.
I think we need more details as to what, before we do their resolution.
well, the county is
Exactly
applying,
what
and
needs
we
to
can
be in it.
ask
Maybe they can
Jonathan
give us a-
Keys exactly what language he needs in the
They
resolution.
could give us a sample resolution that other communities have adopted, possibly.
Yeah.
Mm.
We
Is that-
just want to know, is it like authorize the supervisor to enter into an IMA with the county, letter of support and committing funds, all in one, wrapped up?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a sample of any other towns or villages in terms of what instrument they executed to show that commitment. No,
Okay, yeah, we'll look at some, get some samples together.
right. I mean, it sounds like you need a commitment from the town for $100,000, is that right?
That's right.
All right. Yeah,
If the state doesn't come through with the budget.
yeah, it's contingent
It's
upon.
contingent, so you would say.
Yes, I mean, we're planning on spending it, but hopefully the state comes through.
But we
with
have
it.
done this before. I mean, Jim, lots of times where we have committed to a match and then applied. I mean,
Yeah,
all the
NYSERDA grants that we just got,
I was
yeah.
just gonna say.
we haven't, we did it on FIP. That was a,
The climate action plan, we
Big
committed
commitment.
to 150, and hopefully we got a grant for 50 from NYSERDA, we did.
The multi-purpose bike path in Hampton Bays.
yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah, we're familiar with this.
we're familiar with it. So, all right. And
So I'd
that's
like to
good.
put a resolution forward on the 14th
Okay,
for this.
we'll
Well, if
confirm
we
it.
can figure out
From
what
with
it's
Dorothy,
supposed to
where
look like.
the
Yeah.
funding comes from.
Is this-
And like we said, we put aside the money for the climate action plan, and then we did get the grant, so there's 50 right there.
Well, actually, I have to get that resolution prior to 2 weeks. We gotta get it in by like the 7th or 8th, or the Wednesday.
Yeah, okay, understood.
Yeah, so
Let's put it on for the 14th.
we'll put it on for the 14th, but I gotta submit it prior
Gotta
to
figure out what it's gonna
14th.
look
Well, you
like.
gotta get some questions in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
we'll
should-
we'll figure it out.
You should have it for, what is it?
Yep,
The draft agenda.
by 12
Yeah.
PM.
We'll have it.
Our usual style.
That's 11:59.
Thank you, Janice.
The ninth.
Thank
By
you,
the ninth.
Michael.
Thank you all.
You'll see.
Thank you, Carter.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take
You
care.
Too.
Dennis, when is that new bike trail, is that getting started? The Hampton Bays one? What's,
Yeah, going back and forth with the federal government. This is
That's what I said,
the
like, it's
burden.
a long process and a lot of paperwork.
people ask about that, like when are we breaking ground? And I don't know
We
what to do.
are just as eager, and there was some issues because of the topography and then DOT. We submit things to DOT. We submit a lot of paperwork to DOT. They come back with a lot of comments. That all goes to our consultant. We submit back to DOT. Then months go by, then we get more comments. Then we resubmit what they need. And, so it's the state and the federal government, and those things seem to take a lot longer to wind through, even though we're responsive very quickly. So hopefully they have everything we need. NV5 has been very good to work with, and Tom Houghton and Nick have been really keeping them going on
So
track.
do we think we build it this year?
I would like to say so. Do you
I
think so?
think that's the plan. We
Yeah.
have to go to RFP for construction. Right now, we have the consultant.
We're just trying to
design.
get all the design work approved, and
And
then
it
we can
goes
go out to
from
bid.
Montauk Highway to Red Creek? Is
Yep.
that
It
Through
goes,
Good Ground
it goes
Park?
through Good Ground Park up to, and then it also has roadway signage on Old Riverhead Road, pointing out like how to get there, and then the connection to Red Creek Park.
Goes
So it's
from
like
Good
park
Ground to
park
Red-
to downtown.
Red Creek.
Right.
Does
Goes
it,
Red
does it hit
Creek,
Montauk Highway? I
Well,
didn't-
Good Ground,
hits Montauk.
Right,
you know, it
okay,
goes
so
through Good
that
Ground
trail.
Park, and you end up in downtown.
So can we reduce our
Go by
commitment
CPF.
financially for the distance that we've created this new park piece?
Going in the wrong direction.
I do think this is actually a great example of a 90% design scenario, right? Here we are, a couple of years after we've applied for the grant. We still haven't even gotten to the construction because we're in the design. So to get a plan that's 90% design puts us really in position to go to, shovel ready, which is the goal.
So our goal is to get it done by this year, and have a ribbon cutting.
Is the starting point, going back to Tommy John's question, is starting point on Montauk Highway or starting point in Good Ground
Well,
Park?
it's in Good Ground Park, but Good Ground Park connects to Montauk Highway.
By
You can get on
Canusio
the-
Trail?
Yeah,
But can you take a bike on the Canusio Trail?
You can, but you might not want to.
Slowly.
It's pretty small.
It's
This is,
windy and-
it kind of diagonally traverses Good Ground Park, and then you end up at Old Riverhead Road, and you can cross the road to Red Creek.
Yeah, it wouldn't be good for a bike race.
It all like
not at all.
coincides with on-road bike signage, bike safety. So you have on-road and off-road, so it's.
But
two
there's been a
things.
lot of support from, in these focus groups that I've done in Hampton Bays to a new road that goes from down Montauk Highway to Good Ground Park. And that road certainly could have a bike lane on it, could have.
We
lots of-
envisioned that. I mean, that's when we applied. That's on the on the west side. We had hoped that'd be a future route.
It terminates at the park loop, where
The roundabout
the
is.
roundabout thing
Roundabout, yeah.
is. So yes, you would have to then get down, and we envisioned also we would call it the Brian Whalen piece, because it's that 50-foot right-of-way that would end up being also a road that you would then just traverse from the bulb of the cul-de-sac down
Right.
to Montauk Highway. That's
Yeah.
how we put it in the grant, for lack of, but if you have a main street and you want to make a bike lane
Yeah.
down the middle, that's just as good. That's fine too.
We also have, with this plan that's being presented today, design plans, we have significant right-of-ways in Hampton Bays that connect to the canal area to get over the bridges on Montauk Highway. I know we kind of looked at all of that, and this is something that these folks would do to design a bike trail. And what we were doing in Hampton Bays could connect to a larger network, east-west network.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and you recall the trifecta is downtown, canal, and the
Mhm.
beach, Ponquag. Like, that's
Yeah.
always our triangle of awesome, that we're trying to make it so that you can go from one to the
Right.
the other
By bicycle.
by bicycle.
Or walking.
Or walking.
All right, this is all about promoting health and safety, getting people off the road, and doing so in a way that is beautiful.
Great.
Thank you.
Mike, do you know if that North Shore Trail connects to the trail that's being built by DOT along
I do
by
not know.
347?
Tom Houghton would know that.
Yeah,
347.
yeah. When I was over in AG's office, we condemned all the land and that building, basically connecting the Dennison building all the way up to 112 essentially. And the western part is built, and now they're around near Smith Haven Mall there, and that's going to continue to 112, and then I guess it hooks onto that North Shore Trail, which he talked about, which I've been on many times. It's new, but it starts basically Port Jeff, Mount Sinai, and it goes all the way up to Wedding River.
Yeah, you can
Really nice.
access the Tesla.
Yeah,
Tesla
right through the
Labs
Tesla.
through that.
Exactly, right through Tesla. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
get out of
Thank
here
you,
while you
everyone.
can.
Right. More questions. We'll talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've got a lot, I think, in executive session, but we can take a few minutes for updates. We have a retirement in Police Department, Sergeant Herb Johnson, after 38 years of service in our department, but also NYPD, 84 to 92. So I guess this is the 38 includes his other service as well, New York City Police. He started there for about 8 years, and then Quogue Village Police for 3 years there, then came to us in 1995, and has been with us till today. So we wish him the best as we will be accepting that retirement. And then just a couple other updates. We have, I attended the East End Supervisors and Mayors Association where I'm chair. District Attorney Ray Tierney was there. We talked about a lot of different topics, including the discovery piece, which has been complicated in terms of their ability to meet the requirements to produce all the evidence in 15 days. And we talked a little bit about, the body cam issue and making sure we have a system when we select our body cams that we're able to meet the requirements that the DA needs in terms of compiling all the body camera footage. So that was interesting. John Kamen was there for the county executive's office. Deputy county executive talked a lot about the hack, the county hack, and how it affected the county and sort of lessons learned, and what some of the towns and villages are doing on our side to prevent that from happening. We really need to sort of have, and we've had some conversations. Obviously, we can do everything we can to insure ourselves. We can do everything we can to do penetration tests and make sure that we're not vulnerable to these types of things. But ultimately, if we are shut down, we want to make sure that all of our departments have a way to function when they're down. So some of that is old school, the old, paper ways. But, we don't want to go through months and months like the county did in terms of not being able to meet the demands of our constituents or the needs of our constituents. And also was at the Suffolk County Supervisors Association yesterday, and John Capone was there from our IT. All the IT departments across Suffolk County towns are sort of working together and looking at this issue as well. We also talked, not with the IT folks, but with the supervisors about solid waste. There's a lot of issues coming up with solid waste. We're producing, as a county and Long Island, just tremendous amount of waste that goes to one of, I think, 4 or 5 incinerators, and a lot of it also gets trucked off Long Island, and there are a number of plans now to build rail terminals so that it would go instead to ultimately be loaded onto rail cars, which would reduce traffic and air pollution and expenses, hopefully, which would be good. But right now, sort of the focus is less on municipal solid waste and more on construction and demolition, because Brookhaven has to close their C&D in about a year from now. And so they're looking at rail to transport that C&D as well. And but there was a lot of talk about this company that wants to do glass recycling in Brookhaven, and so there might be a facility for that. A lot of questions about yard waste and how we're going to manage yard waste, particularly if there were another hurricane, because where is it going to go? You're not allowed to use these curtain burners, I think they call them, that they used back in Sandy days, where they were able to burn a lot of it. Those have been prohibited. So we really may be on our own in the event of a major hurricane to try to figure out where all this, all the brush, all the trees and limbs are going to be stored. And we know that we're sort of up against our own limits at our transfer stations in terms of compost. So it could be a big challenge. So that's sort of an ongoing conversation. There is a group, though, that is working on a sort of a Long Island-wide solid waste management plan. It's got a lot of funding involved with it, I think, at the state level, and we're being asked to provide some information to help them with with that plan. And, hopefully some good answers will come out of it. But I'll be going to Tom to answer a couple of the basic questions about what we see as the biggest issues moving forward, our biggest concerns. It's getting more and more complicated, and we have to figure out how to lower our numbers, which means more recycling, more reusing of material, producing less waste to begin with. And then also, we need a plan as we grow as a community to process that waste, whatever it's going to be, whether it's going to be via rail or trucking. And it's likely the costs are going to go up. The costs are likely going to go up quite a bit, and that's going to be an impact to our residents.
Well,
There are still
can I jump
yeah,
in there?
I was going to say there's
Because
still
we've
some
spoken
landfills that
about
are.
this a lot,
Yeah.
and matter of fact, I was gonna talk about it a little bit, but
Oh, good.
you were there, but, we have spoken with Tom quite extensively. Cindy and I are both liaisons to solid waste, but one of the big issues is we actually have some really good applicants coming forward with some processes like biochar.
Yeah, that was discussed
and
too.
managing the waste, particularly vegetative waste, in that way, because we do, and we've known that, we've been saying this for 2 years, that we're gonna get overwhelmed. We're flirting with the limits of the DEC in Hampton Bays in particular. Our compost, we had to buy a new grinder and horizontal grinders and all.
Yeah.
We need to make an investment as well into this system in order to be able.
Brookhaven's talking about building a biochar facility.
Yeah, it reduces volume by almost 80% and produces a product that you can derive revenue from. It makes perfect sense to me. And it can be geared up, it's pyrolysis, that's all it is,
And
you're
it can
superheating.
sequester
Carbon,
carbon.
yeah, and it's also, you can buy it at Home Depot, It's
Char.
literally a product, biochar, so, these are all the ways, also handling, we have large amounts of organic waste, food waste in particular too, so.
What
we've
do you
been
use,
speaking with different-
biochar is used as a fertilizer or something?
Yeah, generally.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good for agriculture. So, there's a lot of things that we're discussing, but we're kind of discussing them in the absence of a plan on what we're going to do, because the timing is, we're looking at, by the middle of next year to end of next year, we're in a serious problem with vegetative waste in particular. So I'm glad that you guys are talking about that, because I think it's a regional issue.
Well, the fact that there's money set aside now to develop a regional plan, and I was at the county, we worked on a regional solid waste plan, we had no money. It was just all volunteer work, and we couldn't get any money to hire engineers and planners and things like that. Now, there's a good group
Yeah.
in place.
Well, we spoke about this years and years ago during the shared services discussions, and it was all a great idea, but nobody out here wanted to find one place to put vegetative waste. Everybody said somewhere else. But that's one of the first things that has to happen. It has to be agreed to that, we're all gonna share in this to get this solved out here.
We should have a plan, though, in case of a major storm, as to where we're gonna bring everything to.
Well, on the Superstorm Sandy task force that I was on, that was actually a big issue, is what to do, and municipalities on how to plan and stage the moving of that kind of waste product from storms and how that gets moved, and that is an issue. It was still highlighted as an issue, but it came back to the same things you were just discussing, that it's really a regional issue, and that when things like that happen, we have to have a plan in place to share our resources to get through
That
it.
results in huge amounts of C&D as well as
Yeah,
vegetative
yeah,
waste. so-
absolutely.
All right, other updates, Tommy John, you have something you want to share?
Yeah, the South Fork Commuter Connection, there is going to be a change in their schedule. It's a slight change, and the change is 16 minutes for the morning train. It's going to leave 16 minutes earlier and arrive 16 minutes earlier as well, just to get that out there. We don't know the exact date of when that is going to go into effect, but it's going to be this February. That is because of the new line into Grand Central Station. It even affects us out here. We're also, the Long Island Railroad is adding also a stop at Spionk for the later train for the South Fork Commuter Connection. But just wanted to put that out there.
Anything else?
Nope.
Well, I mean, that's an important point, though, that the
Oh, yeah.
second train is going all the way to Spion. Before it went, I think, just to Hampton Bays.
West Hampton.
To West
West
Hampton, so that's good, so people
Yeah.
can get on in Spion on either train in the morning and get back on either train.
Lots
That
of
was-
parking in Spionk.
That was a
Still-
big
still-
complaint, though, that they could only get back to West Hampton if they left from Spionk, so
Right,
that kind
that
of
was the
defeated
problem,
it.
so they'd have to go to West
And
Hampton.
connecting the two lines, I think that was still part of the original plan, was that it
Yeah.
actually went from Spionk to the middle line. I know that's been discussed for years and years and years and
But
years.
still no Friday train in the summer, which we're trying to get anything, even a bus.
Well, that's what the sidings would be used for, or something.
Right.
But the Cannonball, the nonstop in the afternoon, transports thousands of people. So they're looking at the numbers there.
Right, but they could
Yeah.
potentially get the trains out in the morning, they can't get anybody back, but maybe they could run a bus, or somebody could run a bus back.
Particularly in that late spring time, a lot of teachers travel on this, and they like the Friday route. And we want them off the road. We would rather have them on the train, so absolutely.
You know.
Yeah, particularly Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
John, you have anything?
That was it.
Rick?
So the Youth Bureau never sleeps. There's a 3-on-3 basketball tournament coming up at SYS that they sponsor, and looking ahead to February break, they have a ton of programs for all ages. So visit their social media or check our website for any other information. But, nobody should be bored over the holidays. They should all have something to do.
Can we field a team?
We could try.
Yeah, I was
No
gonna
hanging
say.
on the rim, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't think we meet the age limit, though. We're start a new bracket.
Yeah, exactly.
Cindy, you have anything?
Hometown Hero banners are currently on sale. The link is on the town website for anyone wishing to purchase one. And they are on a first come, first served basis, so when they sell out, they are gone.
Oh,
So on that note, Cindy, I did get one from my father-in-law. My wife, her family is ecstatic with the photo and the banner. We already got an art proof. We got it right away. It looks great, and we're really looking forward to having that in the park.
That'll be awesome, thank you.
Well, I'm just looking for anything else I might want to mention. We are trying to put together a program on the CPF pilot issue. The Fred, Assemblyman Thiel enabled us to provide pilots to other schools and districts, ambulances, and, I think libraries, fire departments. Right now, there are 4 that we have included in the pilot program. We can expand it, but we have to make some findings. And so I've been working with IT. I think it was Tommy John, you ever been part of that, or John?
I'm part of
Yeah,
it.
so John's been coming to these meetings with our sole
You
assessor.
sit next to me, I just
And-
pointing out.
And so I go to a lot of meetings too. So IT is working up the data so that we can provide some analysis and try to figure out which school districts might qualify and financially what it might mean to the taxpayers in those areas. So we don't have the answer yet, so I'll, sort of keep you guys posted as we figure that out.
We're still collecting data.
Right. And then on the Windsor Heart thing, we're moving forward with an unveiling June 26th of this year, which is the 10th anniversary of the Supreme Court decision that legalized same-sex marriage. And we're going to try to put together a big event. There is still time to have a heart engraved. You can do that through my office or through, go online. It's $1,000 for a heart. All the proceeds go to build the platform, but then we expect to have a significant amount of proceeds that will go to the LGBTQ health clinic in Hampton Bays through Stony Brook, the Windsor, Edie Windsor Clinic. So it has the potential to raise a couple $100,000 for that clinic. So we probably will not have all the hearts engraved for the unveiling, but it's very simple. After that point, you can still get a heart engraved up until they're full. We just simply will order it, they'll ship an engraved heart, and then we'll pop one of the blank hearts out, put the engraved heart in, And then we can then have the blank one ready to be engraved. So I have no doubt that eventually all of the, I think 250 or so, 260 hearts will be engraved. But we're gonna start out with a smaller, I think I wanna say we have like commitments for about 50 hearts to begin with, and I think, there will be some more obviously sold in the next week or two. I think March is our deadline, so I think the end of February, early March, if you want to be part of the initial heart, you've got to give us your information, give us your check. After that, that's sort of the cutoff date, and you'll still be able to get a heart after that until they're full. But if you want to be part of the unveiling, and we're inviting a lot of people to this unveiling, so that's it in terms of updates. Anything else? All right, so for exec, so we have confidential legal advice to discuss in executive session. We have contracts to discuss. We have personnel, acquisitions, and I think that's it. So I'll make a motion to end our work session and go to executive session on those items.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.